I told my sister's husband she was trying to get pregnant behind his back and ruined their marriage. Ida? Advice needed. 33F. I come from a family where I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. I'm also a wife and mama to a rambunctious 5-year-old girl. My youngest sister Emily, 27F, has always wanted kids, but when she married her husband Toby, 30M, informed they did not plan on having children, I was put off, but thought it was a decision they made as a couple. A few weeks ago, I met Emily for our monthly girls' night out. After a few drinks, she admitted to me that she's always wanted to be a mother and Toby kept saying no due to his childhood background. She said she's heard of men not wanting kids in their 20s but changing their mind as they mature and always thought Toby would do the same, but he's remained adamant that he did not want any. She then told me that she had her IUD taken out, so they have been using condoms while she's choosing her next birth control option. I was shocked to hear that she was taking these used condoms to try and get pregnant in secret. I was completely taken aback and told my sister that what she is doing is the female version of men poking holes in condoms. I said she needs to stop immediately, and what she was doing was crazy. My sister blew my cancer off and said he was just really great with other kids and said she knows Toby will be a great dad. She then laughed it off and changed the subject. The next day I confided in my husband. He was disgusted and said that what she is doing is unacceptable and said I can't let her continue doing this. I called Emily and said that I was freaked out about she told me and wanted her to promise that she would stop trying to get pregnant without Toby's consent. Emily got defensive and said I didn't understand the situation because my husband has always been excited about kids, even more than me. She said she made a mistake bringing it up to me and that I needed to drop the subject because it's her life. A week after this phone call, I still couldn't let it go. I reached out to her husband behind her back and asked to grab coffee. I tried to keep it vague that he should talk to her more about her idea on kids because I didn't think she was being honest with him. We did some back and forth, but he still wasn't getting it. I finally spilled the beans that I think she's trying to get pregnant, and he kept pressing on what I knew. Once the condom thing came out, he looked sick and quickly excused himself. An hour-ish after, Emily began to blow up my phone with missed calls and texts freaking out on me and calling me all sorts of terrible things. I finally picked up one of her calls, and she was hysterical on how I ruined her marriage and that Toby was throughout the word divorce during their fight. She screamed that I'm jealous of her focus on her career and wanted to be the only one with kids because my whole personality is being a good-for-nothing stay-at-home mom, and it's the only thing I've ever achieved. This broke my heart and I couldn't listen anymore, so I hung up, turned off my phone, and started sobbing. After this, Emily got a hold of my family to blame me for turning Toby against her and that I'm causing her to get divorced. My mom, who's kind of like the matriarch of the family, told me that while what Emily did was not great, a lot of men do change their minds, like my dad did once they accidentally got pregnant with me, and what I did was not my place and unforgivable. I've since been uninvited to Christmas and my family has either been against me, cold to me, or uncomfortable around me. Only my husband has been on my side and told me what I did was the moral thing. I don't know what to do. I really thought I was doing the right thing, but everyone seems to hate me now. I don't know how to fix this and I really need help. I really wasn't trying to ruin her marriage, but it feels like my whole family has blown up. I feel like I've made a terrible mistake. Do you think I was wrong? Etta, for threatening to divorce my wife if she didn't become a proper homemaker in the next month? My wife and I have been married for 4 years. I'm 33 and male, and she's 32. Her name is Steph. Steph is a SAHW, and since we got married, she has been incredibly inconsistent with household labor. I work a physically demanding job, and it would really help if Steph could at least cook dinner more than once or twice a week. Instead, she sits at the dinner table, hunched over her phone for hours a day. She's completely addicted to it, but she refuses to even have a conversation about this. Now, about twice a year, I have an opportunity to visit a foreign country for work. The nature of the work is to supervise construction and instruct the workers there. The compensation for these trips is always fantastic, and Steph is appreciative when I go because I bring home a pretty fat paycheck after. 3 weeks ago, I was about to depart for 2 weeks on such a trip. At around 10 a.m., I texted Steph and said that time was tight, but I'd be home at 12:30 to pick up my luggage. I asked her if she would make me something for lunch and she agreed to do so. I emphasized that I had about 10 minutes to stuff my face and then get to the airport. At 11 a.m., I texted her again, saying I'd be home as planned at 12:30. Again, she said okay. At 12 p.m., I texted her saying that I was leaving. I walked in the door at exactly 12:30, only to find her sitting at the dinner table, hunched over her phone. When I walked in, she gave me this bewildered look. She had done literally nothing. Nothing was cooking. Steph stood up in a panic and said she'd start making me lunch, but I told her that it was pointless. She sheepishly apologized, and I responded, "Don't say sorry, just be less fucking useless." This made her very upset. I just picked up my luggage, left, and went to the airport. I did manage to pick up some food at the airport, but I really would have liked a home-cooked meal before eating out every day for 2 weeks. I got home last week, and Steph was still angry. She said that what I said to her was over the top. I asked what she had been doing those 2 weeks, and she insisted that she was super busy, see, Instagram and Netflix. I gave her an ultimatum that she had 1 month, until January 10th, to get her shit together and be a proper homemaker. I told her that if she couldn't, I was going to divorce her. Steph was super upset, and for the past week, she has been sulking, see, Instagram and Netflix. She told her family about it, and her mother basically blamed me for Steph's lack of direction in life. I know it's nonsense that a 32-year-old woman needs to have her hand held to do anything, but was I being ridiculous with my ultimatum? Edda for considering divorce over my wife's ex-behavior. Recap: I've been with my wife for 6 years, married for 5 years. Her son, let's call him Jake, is 9. He used to call me Dad, and we had a great bond. 5 months ago, his biological dad showed up. Since then, Jake has been repeating things his dad says and constantly insulting me. I went from he is my dad to he is just my mom's husband. Ha ha ha. I talked to my wife about it, but she thinks he's just a kid and that I should let it go. Last week, Jake called me because his dad, who was supposed to pick him up from school and then take him shopping for his mom's birthday, bailed on him. I stepped in, took Jake shopping, and we had a good half day together. I paid for the gift he picked out. I dropped him off at his dad. He was sleeping and forgot about even picking Jake up from school. On my wife's birthday, Jake lied and said it was his dad who took him shopping and paid for the gift, despite his dad never having a job or paying child support. His dad graciously accepted all the compliments and even made fun of the gift I gave my wife. My wife, however, didn't say a word to him. After the party, when Jake went to his dad's, I told my wife I was upset that she didn't stand up for me. She rolled her eyes and said, "Why? Because he was more thoughtful than you?" I told her the truth about what happened, but she didn't believe me. I even showed her my credit card statement and phone logs proving that Jake called me on Tuesday. Frustrated, I left to stay with my brother because I can't be around someone who doesn't trust me. Here's the thing, my brother thinks I'm right. My mother-in-law has messaged me 1,000,000 times, saying it's a misunderstanding and that I'm overreacting. My wife hasn't apologized. She came over yesterday and said she feels stuck because she doesn't want to make her son feel bad about his dad. She keeps saying, "He's just a kid, and you should be the bigger person." When I asked if she was apologizing, she said no. She insisted it was just a misunderstanding and added that she's seen how much her ex has been trying. Then she said I was acting like a needy man baby. I told her that if she thinks so highly of her ex and doesn't see my efforts, she should leave because she clearly doesn't get my point. She doesn't seem to care about any of the effort I put in. Her response? "That's exactly what I'm saying. You're acting like a needy baby who needs a reward. You need to man up if you love me." So now I'm torn. Should I start talking to a lawyer because there's no point in working on this? Or am I overreacting and should we try counseling? Update. Thank you everyone for your input. I really appreciate it. I'm contacting an attorney this week to help me with the divorce process. I can't continue living like this. I've been following for a while, and I've woven together a theory that I believe ties most things in. The drones with lights are man-made. They're trying to pollute the sky. They have to have lights. They couldn't start genuinely creating flight hazards, so they improvise, but the FAA is in on it. Every defense contractor has been, well, contracted to create as many wild shapes of drones as possible to cause mass confusion and to be able to claim mass delusion. It gives lazy skeptics easy cannon fodder. Some of the drones are designed to look like planes to make it easier to discredit sightings and laugh at those who claim legitimate sightings. It's a classic play as old as the book itself. They're polluting the sky because there is a mass sighting about to happen or sightings are ramping up. This is why there are fewer sightings in other countries. They aren't deploying their own drones. I think that's just the state's last-ditch attempt at controlling the public. Disclosure isn't going to come from where we expect the government. It's going to be laid upon us by the very thing the government has tried to hide. This is catastrophic disclosure. Imagine, metaphorically, that this whole time, we have been hitching a ride on the back of a giant, universe-sized creature, and soon, it's going to open its eye wide and we're going to be looking straight at it. The reason they feds are playing dumb is because they're embarrassed. The whole rotten core that has been operating without oversight has never had to be used to answering to anyone. I think they've been given their reckoning and they're just too pathetic to admit to it, like a child caught in a lie. They just continue to lie instead of coming clean. But I think their hand is going to be forced. And it's happening ahead of schedule because the government probably agreed to protect the earth and thought they could get away with business as usual. Those in power proved they're essentially addicts who can't quit. But NHI, I hope, sees the good in the world and wants to intervene for the greater good. It could even be possible the US or China or Russia has tried to use nukes against NHI either underwater, they sure carried out a lot of testing, or in space, or both. This could be akin to an adult stepping in between reckless children and saying enough is enough, you need to change your behavior. Either that, or rogue AI are my best guesses. I regret becoming a mother and can't say it out loud. I never thought I would write these words, let alone admit them to myself. I'm a 37-year-old woman, a mother of 2, and I regret ever becoming a mother. It's not a fleeting thought born out of sleepless nights or the exhaustion of tantrums. It's a cold, sharp realization that I've carried with me for years. I know how society views women like me, as ungrateful, selfish, or even monstrous. But I need to say this out loud because no one ever talks about the other side of motherhood, the dark, suffocating side that some of us can't escape. When I was younger, I didn't even want children. I remember telling my college boyfriend at the time that I didn't see myself as the mom type. I was ambitious, full of dreams, and convinced that motherhood was a trap. I wanted to travel, work in journalism, and live in a tiny apartment in Paris with a bookshelf that reached the ceiling. The idea of giving up that freedom for sleepless nights and sticky hands never appealed to me, but life, as they say, had other plans. I met my husband, James, when I was 27. He was sweet, stable, and everything I didn't know I needed at the time. We got married 2 years later, and almost immediately, the question started, when are you having kids? I brushed him off at first, laughing about how we weren't ready yet, but James wanted kids, badly. He came from a big, loving family and couldn't imagine life without children. He never pressured me, exactly, but the longing in his voice whenever he talked about having a son or daughter was impossible to ignore. So I told myself it would be fine. Maybe I was wrong about not wanting kids. Maybe I just hadn't met the right person to share that journey with. Everyone told me that motherhood changes you, that it's the most profound love you'll ever experience. I wanted to believe them. Our first child, Lily, was born when I was 30. The moment they placed her on my chest, I waited for that rush of love everyone talks about. Instead, I felt panic. She was so small, so fragile, and I was terrified. I told myself it was just the hormones, the exhaustion, and that the feelings would come in time. They didn't. I went through the motions like any good mother would. I nursed her, rocked her to sleep, and sang lullabies at 3 a.m. But inside, I felt hollow. I wasn't resentful of Lily herself, she was just a baby, after all, but I was resentful of the life I had lost. I missed my freedom, my career, and the version of myself that had existed before motherhood. Every time I scrolled through social media and saw old friends traveling or thriving in their careers, it felt like a punch to the gut. When I confessed these feelings to James, he tried to understand, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. It'll get better, he said. You're just overwhelmed. And I wanted to believe him. 3 years later, we had our second child, Noah. By then, I had hoped that my maternal instincts would have kicked in. They hadn't. If anything, Noah's arrival only deepened my despair. With 2 kids, I felt like I had completely disappeared. My days were consumed by diaper changes, preschool drop-offs, and the endless monotony of parenting. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I just ask for help? The truth is, I did. I hired babysitters, went to therapy, and even took short solo trips to try to reconnect with myself. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the weight of motherhood. It was as if my identity had been swallowed whole, leaving behind a shadow of the person I used to be. What makes it worse is that I do love my children. I love the way Lily's eyes light up when she's excited about something, and the way Noah curls up in my lap with his favorite book. They are innocent, beautiful souls, and they don't deserve a mother who feels this way. But that's the cruel irony. I can love them and still regret the life I gave up for them. I've spent years silently battling this guilt. afraid to speak the words out loud for fear of judgment. Society idealizes motherhood to such an extent that admitting you don't enjoy it feels like a betrayal. Mothers are supposed to be selfless, endlessly patient, and fulfilled by their role. If you don't fit that mold, you're seen as broken or ungrateful. I've lost friends over this. When I finally opened up to a close friend about how I felt, she looked at me like I was a stranger. "But you're such a good mom," she said, as if that erased everything I had just told her. Others weren't as kind. One even accused me of emotionally damaging my children by harboring these feelings. It's hard to describe the isolation of feeling this way. Every parenting blog, every Instagram post, every well-meaning comment from strangers reinforces the idea that motherhood is the ultimate joy. There's no room for nuance, no space to admit that it's not the right path for everyone. If I could go back in time, I don't know if I would make the same choices. I love my children, but I often wonder if they would have been better off with a mother who wanted this life, someone who could embrace the chaos and find joy in the little moments. I know some people will read this and think I'm a monster. They'll say I should have never had kids if I wasn't sure, or that I'm selfish for putting my feelings above my children's needs. And maybe they're right, but I also know there are other women out there who feel the same way, trapped by societal expectations and afraid to speak their truth. To those women, I want to say this: you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're not a bad person for feeling this way. Motherhood isn't one size fits all, and it's okay to admit that it's not the life you imagined for yourself. As for me, I'm still figuring it out. I don't have a neat, happy ending to this story. I'm doing the best I can for my kids, trying to show up for them even on the days when I feel like I'm drowning. Maybe one day, I'll make peace with my choices, or maybe I won't. But for now, I'm choosing to be honest with myself and with the world.